Hey everybody, I would like to remind you all again, if you don't know, the teaser trailer for my first feature film, Dr. Imperfect and the Perfect Man, will be coming this Friday. And I hope that you all enjoy it. At least enjoy it more than I enjoy Bride of Frankenstein because, well, you'll see what I think. I kind of have a hot take when it comes to Bride of Frankenstein. And I'm wondering what Safi will think because she hasn't seen it in years. So, to the review.
Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. And today we are doing a review of... We've been watching the Frankenstein movies, and we're doing The Bride of Frankenstein.
The Bride of Frankenstein, Safi.
Which was made in 1935.
The Bride of Frankenstein. Emphasis on the Frankenstein, not so much on the bride. Right, Safi? I mean...
Although they don't show the, quote, bride until almost the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
And really, as... the bride, who's Elsa Lanchester, by the way. Lancaster. She is in it as the bride just for the last, I don't know, 20 minutes of the movie. That might be generous at the beginning. She plays Mary Shelley, along with her husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley, the poet, and Lord Byron, and they're talking about...
He was the third.
They were talking about the success or publication and the meaning of Frankenstein. And I read, somebody put a little comment that the inspiration for the book... Now, I just only have seen one source on this, so I don't know about the complete veracity of it, but... she had a baby, and it was stillborn. And what they did was they put the baby in the fireplace and they burned it up. And I guess people were a little bit put off because she was a Christian, and that's kind of like a desecration. And, you know, in our society today, because this was the 1800s, that would have been like abuse of the corpse, and she would have gone to jail. But anyway, so her fascination with bringing a dead being to life kind of came from that experience.
I think that my fascination with doing a review is to try to do a good review.
Well, I think people don't know that's a... I don't know if that's totally true, but that's theory.
Let me finish. The first point of many points that I would like to make in this video analysis is that I think it's really funny because, you know, Elsa Lancaster, she plays two characters. She plays Mary Shelley and she plays the bride. Well, you know, the actress who played Henry's wife, she was sick or something during the making, so they had to replace her with this other woman. And this other woman that they got, she wasn't a woman, she was a girl, and she was 17. And so that's something I never knew. And Safi didn't either. And I think it's, you know, obvious because, you know, they never kiss in the whole movie. And, you know, they couldn't do that. Since she was 17, they couldn't do anything else. And so, but I just don't understand why not have Elsa Lancaster play her too. Because that would have been even more interesting. Because you would have the dynamic that they made a monster that looked exactly like her. So that would have been better. And then they could have gotten the 17-year-old to play Mary Shelley. What do you think, Safi? From Safi and Marco, Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube.
The thing is,
to review movies in terms of food.
They got what happened is, they would have had to put her in 3 times if they would have done that.
Why?
well, I don't want to say because you'll say I'm jumping ahead. So they have to, and I was going to read about this too and add a little bit of historical authenticity to the time period, but they have to get a body just like they did for the other Frankenstein. But I guess the boy Frankenstein,
Oh, she's
he
jumping
was
ahead.
pieces, different parts of bodies.
She's jumping ahead.
Now, see here, Marco's criticizing. So anyway, you'll see later what I mean. So anyway, I did hear, but I did look it up again to see, but taking grave robbing was actually a really common occurrence during these days. So when they did this for the first movie, and then to make Frankie, and then they do it for the second movie to make Mrs. Frankie, was a very common occurrence, and it was a problem. But I don't remember. I just heard about this once, but.
Safi's review consists of saying, I heard this, I heard that, and nothing about what I thought about the movie that I'm talking about. And so
it was a really good, complete movie.
Well, I disagree.
The first movie was more complete. This movie wasn't as complete.
This movie is the most overrated Frankenstein movie ever made. And, as a kid, I was kind of disappointed by it because of how little the bride is actually in the movie. She's on the cover on the VHS. Yeah. She's the only person on the cover, and she's in the movie for like a minute or so. And it's really strange because she's such an iconic figure that women worship the Bride of Frankenstein.
What?
You see all the time they dress up like her for Halloween. They act like she's some iconic character. And for what? For 1 minute on screen where she just goes yeah! That's what she does. And it's are you kidding me? That's not iconic. That's
she also
stupid.
Hissed, too.
Oh, yeah.
Which was weird.
Well, vampire girls already do that, so that's also kind of lame.
That was really weird, though.
So, but because a lot of people, they love this movie. This is the fan favorite sequel. This is the fan favorite Frankenstein movie. I just can't understand why. I think that it's massively, massively fragmented as a story, and I think that it's goofy and silly. And, a lot of people, they say the first one's goofy. It's there's a couple funny things about it, but it's a horror movie. This is just a comedy. This is more of a comedy than Young Frankenstein.
Well, and the ending is it's just zip, and you're through it.
Yeah.
And
well, that's all of them, though.
But the first one I would say, was a lot more complete and stretched out and made a complete story. Even though at the end, in the first movie, they didn't get married yet, and Frankie supposedly is dead in the fire. But that's supposedly. So, I mean, you have a chance for another one to be made, and I don't know if that was their intention at the onset to have a second one, or what. Because I asked Marco if there was a Bride of Frankenstein book, and he said no. So I'm kind of surprised about that, but
I think in the first book, the monster does mention that he wants him to make him a bride, or something.
I should look, because I have that in the other room. I have that book.
Yeah, Safi read it. I stole it from the library. I didn't steal it. I just kept it, and we forgot to return it, along with Dr. Jekyll, and then we had to pay for it. So I didn't steal it. I forgot to return it. And anyways, I do like the opening. I like how the opening really tries to connect with the first movie. It feels like they really wanted them to connect and to be almost like one big movie. Whereas, other sequels, it's okay, it's years later, we gotta reintroduce all these characters and see what they're doing now. Whereas this movie, it's like, let's recap the first movie, like a Rocky movie or something, and then let's start right off after the first movie ended. And they even closed a couple of plot holes, like what happens to the father and mother of Maria who got killed in the first movie. They both get killed too, right off the bat. Safi?
Yeah, I really like that touch too, where they bring in the authoress and her husband and their friend Lord Byron.
The third.
And the third.
Yeah, he's their third.
And I thought that was really clever. An interesting way to introduce the movie, actually. It's actually a lot more interesting than the end when they have the bride.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, anyway. And also, there was the thing where they didn't get married, and that was a big to-do. I mean, the whole village is involved in that. And she's wearing a magnificent wedding dress with the train and everything, and then because that monster showed up, they don't get married. But in this Bride of Frankenstein, they do get married, but they don't show anything.
They go to Epstein Island off camera and get married. But I think one of the things that's sad about the movie is that you can see Colin Clive, who's Henry Frankenstein. He looks visibly older and sick and just kind of sad.
Well, I read, and we talked about this a long time ago, that he was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And he actually had trouble with his lines when he was doing these movies, and they would have to help him out. So he really, I think he died an earlier death than he should have, or he could have maybe lived longer if he hadn't had this problem. So he did look sicker. And
to me, it takes away from the movie because you try to make it seem like it's connected to the first one, and it just visibly does not connect, especially with him and his wife, who now looks completely different. Why didn't they cast a blonde?
I don't know, but
that's so weird.
The thing about it is, I asked Marco, because what happened was I just went ahead and watched the Bride one first. I've seen them both, but it's been a while. And I said, was that the same actress who played the wife? He says, no, it was a 17-year-old. And if you look at the hairstyles, although the Bride was made in 1935, but it was probably made a year before, and then it finally gets produced or made, in 1935. Her hair was really long, and not really, but, it was way past your shoulders, and it was like a completely different style. But she did look older. She did look old enough to be his wife. And then the hairstyles of the women in the first movie, the Frankenstein movie, they were all like short and curled underneath and pinned. And so I thought, she sure looks awfully different. But she was younger, and I just think if she'd been older, like the other actress was, I don't know how much older she was, her hair would have even looked older and different, but she looked like a young girl. Or she could pass for somebody older, but still her hairstyle did make her look younger. So, and Marco said she was 17. So, makes sense.
I would also say, I talked about this in the first review. There's no discussion about, who created Frankenstein by the villagers. There's just a monster running around. Where did he come from?
I didn't get that either.
In the sequel, there's still no discussion, and the villagers, they love Henry Frankenstein. They don't connect why did he go up there and fight with him? Why was he put in charge of that search? There's just no discussion about it at all. And the villagers, they're like, oh, that lovely man. Remember the old woman? She's like, that lovely Frankenstein, he is sick and he's doing very badly. And it's like, oh, he's a lovely man to the town? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, they were happy because when they were going to have the wedding, the father, Baron von Frankenstein, he bought them all beer, and he said they could have all they wanted.
Yeah.
So they were really happy at his hospitality.
Excuse me. Sorry. But what? Just talk about in general. Like, what did you think about? Because I mean, a lot of people they love this movie. They love like every single little thing about it, and they even now here we should talk about this. And I know that this is probably true because James Whale, he was gay. There's a lot of discussion about Henry and Dr. Pretorius being gay for each other. Is like James Whale like secretly wanted that, and
Who's James Whale, the
director,
yeah.
And I just don't see that at all because like Dr. Pretorius, he's evil. He's using Henry.
He's actually more like monstrous, or he fits really into like an evil mad scientist.
Yeah.
He fits more into that category. The other guy is just, he's very Dr. Frankie, I call him. He's just very consumed by his work, and I've seen this for real.
It's like an addiction.
Yeah.
So.
And he's what you would call, what people call driven. And that's all he can think about.
Yeah.
And but the other guy, this Dr. Pretorius comes to see him, and he wants Dr. Frankie to team up with him and make a girl. I guess does he know does he know Frankie the monster's alive yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so he says and you know, Dr. Frankie's really suspicious of him, and he brings out this case. And
I will say that's one of my favorite things about the movie. There's a shot of him bringing in the case, and he looks really, really creepy when he brings in the case.
Yeah.
And but talk about the little people, Safi, because Safi is obsessed with little people. She has
little people.
I'm
talking about doll size, like Barbie doll sized.
Yeah.
Or G.I. Joe doll sized figures in glass cases. They're cylindrical cases, and I'm like, are those, you know? And I didn't remember any of that at all. And like, there's a king type, there's a ballerina, there's like a queen maybe. So anyway, each case has this figure, but this is a figure that's alive. It's not a toy. It's I think it's a living being.
They all are.
Yeah, all of them.
And so
you're talking about several, like probably half a dozen.
There's a lot of questions about that, like how did they go to the bathroom? What did they eat? How's the food measured down? Where do they sleep? They can't breathe if they're inside those glass containers all the time. So it just, there's a lot of questions to that.
And that just pops up and pops out.
Yeah, and they never bring it up again. The only significance is that the queen rejects the king.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
that might have been a foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. But anyway, the thing is, let's think about this a moment, and this is probably directed towards all these people who must think this is a great movie.
Well, you do.
If they were able, if this guy, not Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Pretorius, if he was able to create these little beings with little hearts and little brains and little organs who are humans, but they're doll-sized, what's the deal? I mean, they're going to all this trouble to make life-sized living beings. And these are like, I mean, their costumes and everything about them are perfect. Their facial features, everything. So if he could make a little figure, a little person, why does he even need Dr. Frankenstein to help him make a life-sized one?
Yeah, he's able to grow people out of nothing, so he could just do it himself. And in fact, I think the movie does a terrible job it's showing the whole process of him growing people. Like, I thought that was kind of like just, you might as well not have even included that. Like, he could have just been another guy who just wants to continue his work.
My idea is that the reason why he showed him these figures, because he wanted to show him that he was serious about what he meant, that he wanted to create a female counterpart to Frankenstein, and he needed his help, and the only way to prove this would be to show him these figures, because they made a big deal out of it. With the case and bringing it in, it was like a ceremony almost. So it just, if you really think about it, it just raises so many questions that never get answered. And like I said, it was pop in and pop out. I mean, they spent a lot of time with this little segment, and then you never saw them or heard about them again, like Marco said. So it's really strange. And I don't even remember that at all. But that's the thing about when you watch a movie for entertainment and you watch a movie to review it, you have a completely different mindset about things in the story. So this is a big thing in the story.
I think that the movie's very fragmented, because first it starts off like it could be about Henry, and then the whole middle part is just all about the monster. It's almost like a solo movie for him. And then at the end they try to bring it all together, and it just doesn't work for me, because it just feels kind of contrived, and it feels a little too perfect. And, there's this whole weird thing at the end with the kidnapping plot where, like, they kidnapped his wife off camera and then she escapes somehow. Just comes up out of nowhere. And then they create the bride. She goes away after a minute. And it's like, God, this is not a great sequel.
Well,
to me.
And two, I think
there's good things about it, though. There are.
I don't know if this is brought out in the book, but the thing is, Dr. Frankie was very intent on doing this experiment and putting all this together and having it work. It did, but he never thought through the rest of it. And so this movie kind of showed that, because what happened was you have Frankie, the monster, running around the countryside, and he stumbles upon this blind guy who can't see him.
That's the best part of the movie, to me.
But see, the thing is about that, he treats him like a regular person, and so he kind of like socializes him. He teaches him manners, teaches him about smoking, and so the fire, remember, Frankie can see everything, but the blind guy can't. And so he teaches him about smoking the fires to make the cigar or whatever that was light up so you can smoke. He shows him smoking, and then he shows, and then the food, and he says what it is, and all these things. He socializes him. Dr. Frankie never taught him anything like that. In fact, he treated him kind of like a dog in the first movie. He'd say, "Stay," and they'd have that torch, the fire. And that's what got the assistant, Fritz, into trouble and got him killed, because he just started abusing it and just threatening Frankie. And Frankie said, "I'm sick of you," and he kills him. So he never socializes. He completes the experiment. He's a person, and that's it. It's over with. And now what do I do with it? And he said he called it a thing, I think, and. So that's, in the second one, this part with the blind man was a really good part, like the first, in the intro, because they actually treated him like a human, a person, because the guy was blind. And then that all gets disrupted, but it's already impacted him. He already knows about all this stuff. The word friend, and smoke, and drink, and all this basic human things. So I thought that was interesting, all of that. So, but that is true. Though that can be, there's different sciences, and like Dr. Henry is kind of like Dr. Henry Frankenstein is like a one certain kind of science, and then the culture, the socialization, that would be a different scientist, and he's not familiar with that. So you get what you get, and the guy, even Frankie, the monster, when he finds out about this mate, he's really excited about it, about a woman.
Why?
I don't know, because I don't know, I really,
Why?
doesn't think he would, but he still has a brain of a human.
The
So
brain
even though it was
is,
a diseased
but
brain, it still knows about women and men.
yeah. Well,
So in a basic way. So I don't know. It's just like there's a lot of open-ended, like Marco says, kind of fragmented.
well, it's like they knew that the audience, they're just gonna love this movie because it's a horror movie and because we're telling a story. But nowadays, you know, you can look at it with a more critical eye and you can go, this didn't really make much sense. It could have been a lot better. Because I'll say this. It's good that it felt like a sequel to the first one, because a lot of the times nowadays they make terrible sequels that just completely disrespect the first movie and ruin it and ruin the legacy, ruin the characters. On the other hand, though, I'm trying to think, like, is this the best sequel we could have gotten? Like, is this the best follow-up? Is to turn it into a joke?
Well, I'm wondering if they just didn't know how to make sequels back then. That was a new kind of thing.
It does, well...
And
yeah.
maybe they just did, and they didn't have Mary Shelley's writing to help it.
Well, you know my least favorite part of the movie?
What?
The old lady. The one
that's over dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's so annoying.
Well, she doesn't really. She's a character actress, obviously.
She's better in the Invisible Man.
Oh.
Invisible Man, she's good in that because that movie is comedic. But in this movie, it's just like, oh, there's that character. You know, like, yeah. I don't know. I hate to sound so negative about this movie because it is everyone's favorite, and, you know, but I don't think it's as good as the first one. And the first one, I talked about how there's all these wide shots. It has such a creepy horror feel to it. In this movie, it hardly has any wide shots at all. And it feels like it's not even made by the same person, which is funny because it is. So,
and also, I think, like we said, the ending is rushed.
yeah.
And it's real short. I mean, it is short. And everything is rushed.
I did like that the monster let Henry go because apparently they were originally going to have Henry get killed. And I thought it was good that the monster let him go because that was in character for him to do.
Yeah, I guess.
I just wish we could have seen more character development with Henry and that we could have seen more back and forth between him and his own creation rather than him and Dr. Pretorius, which, to be honest, people talk about what's called self-inserts nowadays. I feel like Dr. Pretorius is a self-insert for James Whale.
I don't know. I would have liked to see more of the bride.
Yeah, her too.
In fact, I was shocked that they hardly showed her at all. And I was shocked because, you know, whenever they do like a takeoff, like a comedic takeoff, maybe a cartoon, or even a skit, like on Saturday Night Live or something, or, you know, one of these old variety shows like Carol Burnett or something like that, they would, anything, they would have like them have a relationship in some way. It might not have been a long thing, but there was no relationship here. She rejects them right off, and that's when we're talking about that foreshadowing with these little figures, these little people at the beginning, because the queen rejects the king. The king is trying to get to her from the other cylindrical glass thing, and Dr. Pretorius says, he always gets out. And it was exactly like that. and he, and she hisses, and she, runs away and draws her arms up in horror, and then Frankenstein, it ends up saying, I think he said, she hates me, which is funny. I mean, that's the word hate. Where did he get that word? Because I don't think the blind man taught him the word hate.
Well, it's so contradictory to the first one, because in the first one, it's like, oh, it's a diseased, evil man's brain. And so you think, like, why would he care if she hated him if he's a bad man? Like, he'd probably just rape her. Right?
Or just beat her up and kill her. He probably could get her and throw her against the wall.
Yeah.
And she'd be, she could die of what do you call it, a blow to the head or something, whatever they call it. So there's just a little bit too many incongruities. I think
it's an entertaining movie, though. I mean, it's not like it's boring or it's stupid. It's just, to me, I gotta be honest, I don't like it. I don't like it compared to the first one. And I feel like the first one is like 1,000,000 times better.
It was just more complete, and like Marco talked about, I don't know, he's talking about the camera shots, but they show him in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Dr. Frankie and Fritz are digging, they just buried somebody, and they dig them up, and it's a process, and there's actually somebody hanging from a noose.
That was really creepy.
Which, I didn't get that. They actually get to cut that body down. He says, oh no, we can't use that. We can't use his brain because the neck is broken. Well, yeah, he was hung. Yeah. And so, but they show the graveyard. It's dark. You just see all these images of the graves, and it's exactly like it really is, because in London, they just show, there's another YouTuber called Faces of the Forgotten. He was in London and another, like Scotland and Wales. And here, there's 7 like major graveyards in London. And it's just like that. They have these big, gigantic tombstones, crosses, and angels, and statuary. But they showed it at night. But it was enough of a light behind it to show them in the darkness, and it was really cool.
This movie, there's so many like mediums and close-ups of these people, and it's not like mysterious and creepy anymore. No. And it's like, why would you do that? Especially if you're not even gonna, go into Henry's character any more than like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm just going to sit down, and I just don't want to do it, and oh, maybe I'll do it. I don't know, I just don't want to do Frankenstein. Oh, maybe I make people. I don't know what a Frankenstein...
Oh, what kind of scientist is he?
That's what he's like in this movie. He's just like, I don't know, I don't want to do it anymore, or maybe I do, and then all of a sudden... I did like the part where Dr. Pretorius brings in his monster, and he's like, I brought another helper, and he was like, oh, it's you! Oh!
Yeah, so anyway.
Right, Safi?
I think the thing is, I don't think they knew how to do a sequel.
Well...
They didn't have Mary Shelley to give them, she's probably dead by
Well,
then.
apparently the hermit thing was in the book. So they did take stuff from the book, but, it doesn't matter. Like, the first one is not really like the book at all. In the book, Frankenstein is really intelligent, and he talks a lot, and it's not the book, the first movie. So,
I think they've talked about this, too, because remember didn't they make a remake a few years ago?
They've made lots of versions of this
movie. Well, this one was... the latest one, and this was brought up about the talking. I think we saw it. I'm trying to remember.
Is it the Wishbone? They did a Wishbone episode that was actually faithful to the book for the most part.
And that would be true to Wishbone.
I thought the Wishbone one was really good, actually.
I think that's what I'm thinking. Probably maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
But there was a remake, and I know there have been all these. I mean, if you look on the library, the Hoopla site I've talked about, there's tons of different
Even Full Moon did one. Frankenstein Reborn. Remember we have that VHS still? That was stupid. That one's the worst. Or one of the worst.
I didn't care for it. So anyway,
But what did you like about this movie? Because
well,
just
I
talk
the
about
intro,
what you liked.
And I like the part where he gets socialized. I just never thought about that. Because, whenever I've been associated with the university, and whenever they talk about science, they just talk about, I call them the hard scientists, like meteorology or geology. They never talk about anthropology, like the social sciences. And this is like the clear, I never even thought about it with this movie, but this is a clear distinction between somebody who's in the quote hard sciences and somebody who's in the social science what would you call it, discipline. So anyway, but what I liked the best about the movie was that beginning. I don't know, I thought it was neat. I wish they would do more of that kind of thing with movies, with the author, because they were dressed in period costumes. They were in a room that was decorated like it would have been, and there's a fire going, and it's like a friendly little gathering chat, and I just thought that was neat. It was a nice touch. I'm glad that they did that, and then Elsa Lancaster Lancaster. Oh, I keep saying that. Oh, I'm glad that she played both parts. I thought that was a neat tie together.
Well, also, the guy who played Fritz in the first movie and Renfield in Dracula, he played Carl, and Carl sucked. He was another terrible character. That's another thing. It just kind of felt like, it was like, okay, let's do the first movie, but kind of like in reverse and not as good. Like, let's just recreate a lot of the first movie and then add a couple of new things. And I didn't like the look of Frankenstein either. The monster, I didn't like how they... It might have been because Boris Karloff gained weight. I don't like how he looked at all.
Well, the only thing I recognized in this second movie...
He looks a lot different.
They capture him, and they put him in the basement, and they chained him up to a chair.
I thought that was cool.
And I remember...
I like that part a lot.
We bought some of these figures. We bought Dracula, and it had the coffin, and all these little pieces, a little bat, and then they had that Frankenstein, who was from that movie, from the second one, The Bride, where he's in that shackled to that chair. That was the figure of Frankenstein, the whole thing.
I still have that.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
You could probably post a picture.
No, I would have to dig it out.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only one I have out is the Dracula figure, which it's Dracula in his coffin.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't have the other figures out.
Those were really well made. They were really cool figures.
Is there anything else you want to say about the Bride of Frankenstein, Safi?
I just wish that they would have shown more of her.
The
thing at the end, and then she rejects him, which surprised me. I thought they would have some kind of a little relationship. I don't know why
Well, they did in Mad Monster Party. If you remember Mad Monster Party, he has the bride who's with him the whole movie.
Oh.
And, but...
Is that with the song?
Yeah.
Okay, that's on the library site.
I also would say, I talked in the first one how each Frankenstein movie has a unique, monster creation process. I think this is probably one of the worst ones. Because what do? They make a heart. They don't show that. They don't show how they made it. They just show a beating heart a million times, and then they fly some kites. And it's like, why did they do the kites? Like, it was just so silly.
And those were gigantic kites.
Yeah, that was
what
weird.
Are those? I thought, what the heck is it? And I thought, my God, those are kites. Because, it is in black and white. The movie's in black and white, so you have to use your imagination a little bit. But they're gigantic. They're almost as big as, like,
your mom?
First airplanes at Kitty Hawk and Dayton. So, the Wright Brothers planes, like wings from the Wright Brothers creations. So,
yeah,
they were so big to catch that lightning. And I didn't think they showed that adequately either. Even in the first one, the second or the first one.
But the first one, what's good about the first one is that there's a lot of wide shots. There's also a lot of close-ups of the machinery. And also, there's just a mysterious aspect to it because it's like they're keeping the look of the monster in suspense until when he's alive.
Yeah.
And so I loved it, actually. I thought it was perfect.
Well, and it probably has to do with the technique is not as advanced in movie making, showing the lightning more, because I'm thinking about later movies that we've seen where they show the lightning and they actually show it looks like lightning. Maybe it's just...
Even in Boltneck. They did that in Boltneck. They showed the lightning.
I just think it's the technology isn't good enough to... without them getting hurt.
And by the way, that's what I like about Boltneck. One of the things is that, the inconsistencies about the brain and the Frankenstein monster as a person, as a character. In Boltneck, it's clear that he was this other guy, and he has the personality of this other guy, too. So, yeah, but that's a different movie.
Yeah. And
Safi,
it's a modern movie, too.
Safi's seen it before.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's Ryan Reynolds. It's Ryan Reynolds' only good movie.
Nah. Yeah, right. He's made a lot of movies. Come on, Mark.
And they all suck.
He's
just
a
like
kid.
him and his wife.
He's a little kid.
Yeah. Oh, Safi, anything else to say about
No.
Dr. Pretorius or some shit?
But also, Dr. Pretorius was, like we've already said, he was a very good mad scientist. He fit the part.
I didn't like him. I just thought he took away from Henry. Like, I think it would have been better if it was just Henry.
Maybe, but I think that Henry seemed to be done with it. He didn't want to keep... I mean, that was the thing.
Well, what if his monster comes to him and his monster and him work together? That would have been cool.
Yeah. The thing is, that's totally antithetical, which I say that a lot with, like, Dark Winds. If you're a scientist and you've had this whole thing consume your life, this was his life's project. You don't just say, forget it. That isn't realistic at all. It really isn't. And the only reason why he signed on to do the project is because they kidnapped his wife. And they were holding her hostage. So...
No, but he doesn't know that. Remember?
No, but they told him.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the only... And so he wasn't going... He probably wouldn't have helped him. Even after being shown those little people, which I really think that they messed up with that. I don't think they should have done that part. Because he was showing him he was serious.
You know what would be really funny, Safi?
What?
An SNL skit where you could have certain figures as the little people, and they all get trapped by Dr. Pretorius. And it would just be all about the little people. And
I could think of some good political things.
Them trying to escape the glass cases. That'd be really funny. Like, you could...
I could think of some really good political stuff. But
you could be in there.
It's fun to do. It's fun to...
well, just thinking about what happened to the little people. Like, where did they go? Did they die in the explosions?
Yeah, that's right, at the end.
Where'd they go?
What happened was, and I didn't get this either, there was this lever, whatever.
And it's basically like a self-destruct lever or something.
Yeah, and all you do is you pull it down.
It's like in Roblox where you have the reset button, you press it, and it kills yourself.
Well, you press it down, and it all blows up. And Frankenstein closed the door, and he let Dr. Frankie and his wife leave, and then he let the place explode with him and Dr. Pretorius in there. So, and the wife, of course, the bride of Frankenstein.
The bride of Frankenstein.
So, I don't know. I think that was a mistake. I really do. Because it didn't matter. He wouldn't have done the project if they hadn't kidnapped his wife. He was done with it. But that's ridiculous because that was really, the monster really was his responsibility. And he just, like I said, he did his experiment, and because he wasn't a social scientist, he didn't take it further. So he was done with it. And it's just that's really, even if he wasn't a social scientist, he'd already been socialized a little bit by that blind guy. So he could have learned. He's a scientist, by the way, he's smart. He could have taken it further, but he didn't want to bother. So to me, that's not realistic. I don't believe it. And so that's it. I don't know what else to say about it. I was
You can
very
say
shocked.
sorry.
I was just shocked about
You
there
can
not
say
being
sorry.
more of the Bride of Frankenstein.
You can say sorry.
I thought they were going to show a relationship, even if it was small, didn't last long.
You can say sorry.
Like she would like him at first, maybe, and then not like him.
You can say
That's
sorry,
all.
James Whale. I didn't mean to trash your movie. You didn't even want to make.
I'm sure he's passed away.
He killed himself, remember?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, you did, Safi.
No, I don't remember that.
You watched that movie that I had someone else watch with Brendan Fraser. That was based on what happened. But
I didn't
anyways,
see that movie.
anyways,
Wow.
what was I going to say? Safi made me forget because she's too
Well,
consumed.
you're going to talk about your food review.
No. There was something else, though. Can't put my finger on it. I'm trying to think, Safi. I'm trying to think about what was I wanting to say. Oh, now you're going to do that, too? You're going to look at your watch like I'm... I don't know. You're making me not be able to focus.
I'm not looking at you.
I can't focus. I need help from Dr. Frankenstein. But, what was I going to say about the Bride of Frankenstein? Why don't you go ahead and do your food review and I'll think about it.
Well, I think I'll give it some green Jell-O and whipped cream. And the green Jell-O represents Frankie, and the whipped cream represents the bride. That's all I can think of because, Jell-O with nothing in it, just plain old Jell-O, that kind of represents some of the shortcuts they took in the movie, the quick ending. I mean, it was quick. I think it's, out of all the movies I've seen, it's probably the quickest ending I've ever seen to anything. Even a TV show. And, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just that it all starts with Frankie. Frankie is greenish. They always show him green. His green tint to his skin. So that would represent him. And like I said, the whipped cream, which would be, doesn't last that long. It deflates, If you know what real whipped cream does, it kind of like starts to go down. It isn't as fluffy as it was in the beginning. That would be the bride because she's not on there for very long. They don't.
Oh, I remember.
Okay.
This sequel reminds me a lot of The Dark Knight Rises because, Christopher Nolan, he didn't want to make The Dark Knight Rises. He only wanted to make the first two movies. And they basically, I think they forced him to do it.
Wow.
And this was a similar thing where James Whale did not want to make a sequel. They bugged him for 4 years, and he said, "Okay, I'll do it as long as I have full control." And so that's what it reminds me of. It's like a sequel where you can tell this is just a crowd pleaser movie. It's a fun movie for the audience, not for me, because I don't really like it very much. But I would give this movie, and if Safi's done, I'm going to give this movie real quickly. Last night we had Chinese food for some reason, and it
Cinco de Mayo.
It was bad, and it was just really kind of mediocre and just kind of like ugh. But I would understand if other people liked it. But like I got orange chicken and a pork roll. The pork roll was terrible. It was just stuffed with vegetables. It had no flavor. It had no spice. And then the orange chicken was just so... Usually it feels like it's crispy, and the sauce, the flavor from the sauce is really seeped into the chicken. But in this case, it was so watery and thin and just... ugh. It was not very good. And the broccoli, of course, was not even cooked. It was basically like hard, which is bad for me because of my teeth. And so I don't really like this movie that much, but I can understand why people would love it and think it's the best one, because it is.
Do you think it's better than the first?
Oh yeah, people think that this is like one of the best horror movies ever. They think they think the first one is like but they think the second one is really good. And for me,
they should rewatch them and really think about them.
No, well, they won't.
I'm surprised.
Well,
that's it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and tomorrow we're going to try to do a review of the Son of Frankenstein, which I don't know if I've seen before. If I have, I don't remember it.
It has Basil Rathbone.
He was actually in this movie too, I think. He was, because he was one of the hunters who discovers Frankie in the cabin with the blind guy. And they know who he is because they're hunters, so they're not blind. They recognize Frankie, and Frankie knows if they're bad. And it was hard to tell because he was a very young Basil Rathbone. So that's it. So become one of our subscribers. We're nearing the 700 mark. And if you have any comments or suggestions, be sure to leave them. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Before we say goodbye for today's review, I would like to once again remind everyone that my first ever film's teaser trailer will be coming out this Friday. It's going to be fantastic, and it is for Dr. Imperfect and the Perfect Man, aka Dreamt.